They're trying to destroy Herschel to deter young men and women of color from being Republicans. If they destroy Herschel, it will deter people of color from wanting to be a conservative Republican because you just have your life ruined.
South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham cried on Fox News at the prospect of Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker losing in Georgia.
Herschel Walker is a nightmare for liberals. He's an African-American conservative.
Indeed, he is. Which, on Lindsey Graham's list,
if you're a young African-American, an immigrant, you can go anywhere in this state. You just need to be conservative, not liberal.
checks all the boxes.
Well, first of all, he's a nightmare to the children that he has abandoned and done nothing for. He's a nightmare to his own son, who came out and said he lies all the time and shouldn't be in office.
Stand by Herschel tonight. If you can give, give. If you know somebody that can give, ask them to do it. TeamHerschel.com.
So Graham, feeling the heat of the moment in Georgia and fearing the prospect of losing another Senate race, fake cries.
The idea that, again, everything has to be at the extreme. If you don't want someone with his lack of qualifications and bad personal character to be in the Senate, you now hate all conservatives and don't want any black people to be conservative. That's not true. All of us got conservative black people in our families. Yeah. What are you talking about?
Let me tell you.
What are you talking about?
Here's why his tears should not surprise you.
Yeah, and I like being relevant. And the way you stay relevant is you stay engaged.
So what has he done?
Colin Kaepernick, Senator.
Yeah, he's a loser on and off the field. It's un-American. He's a racist. If you're looking for racism in America, Mr. Kaepernick, look in the mirror.
He used this very off-putting way of discussing Donald Trump's impeachment trial.
So yeah, this is a lynching in every sense. This is un-American.
Graham also compared the FBI's Russia investigation to 1960s-era FBI surveillance of civil rights icons like Dr. Martin Luther King. The reason no one should take this man seriously is because
Graham once hated Trump so much, he slammed his own party over it.
My party is going bat crazy.
Now, though, Graham goes mad if you or I call Trump a bad name, especially if you call the president a racist.
If you think he's a racist, that's up to you. I don't.
Really? You don't?
He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot.
The Senate also gets mad if you say Trump's crazy, especially a kook.
You know what concerns me about the American press is this endless attempt to label the guy as some kind of kook.
The American press's attempt to label the guy?
I think he's a kook.
great work from The Intercept all around. In Georgia, there's obviously no doubt of Walker's bona fide celebrity status.
This country produces a crop of excellent college football players every year. Big, fast, young men. But the true superstar, O.J. Simpson, Tony Dorsett, comes along only occasionally. Well, they have one at the University of Georgia, maybe the best of them all. They've got him, but he's so good they may not be able to keep him.
Herschel Walker is a nice young fellow from Wrightsville, Georgia. He is Georgia's star running back, and some sports experts are saying he may be the best college running back in the history of the game.
He flourished at UGA, moving on to sign with the United States Football League, which Donald Trump ran into the ground. Surprise on that front. Seeing him bend the knee to MAGA, Republicans took their shot. Although, as the Washington Post reported, many Republican operatives admit privately that Walker was backed by the party's leaders, at least in part because the GOP wanted a black candidate to face Raphael Warnock, the first black senator in Georgia's history who preaches at the pulpit once held by the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. A lot of conservatives said he's black and he agrees with us. And I think that's why people just gave him the benefit of the doubt, said one Republican strategist in Georgia, speaking on the condition of anonymity to talk candidly. That's what happens when you have a primary and, a celebrity candidate unvetted in the media. On the Walker crying front, The Root's Keith Reed wrote the following, and it is really good. Walker, if you require a recounting, once allegedly put a gun to his ex-wife's head and threatened to blow it off. His son ranted on Twitter about how he abandoned his own children while shaming other black men for being absentees. The mother of another of his children, says he cut her a check to abort another child years before he professed opposition to abortion on the campaign trail. He's been telling people he's in law enforcement while carrying around honorary badges that confer no law enforcement powers, something that could well get you locked up in Georgia if you weren't Herschel Walker. Let's assume that the left's goal is to ruin Walker's life. To what end? Graham and Republicans need look no further than their own policies to find every reason why young, non-white voters don't show much interest in their party. Young people across all racial groups overwhelmingly support the constitutional right to an abortion, a thing conservatives worked 50 years to undo. In a CNN poll back in May, young white people had the lowest rate of support for cancellation of federal student loan debt, followed in order by Asian American, Hispanic, and Black young adults, with Black young people supporting cancellation at about 50%. Conservatives, meanwhile, managed to successfully kill President Biden's student loan forgiveness program, at least for now, in the courts. Conservatives are also behind the Supreme Court case that seeks to dismantle affirmative action in college admissions, putting a target directly on the backs of young Black and Hispanic students while conveniently ignoring the use of so-called legacy admissions policies that favor wealthy, connected white people. We haven't even gotten to the voter suppression tactics, election police forces, and hostility to any police reform. Young Black people don't fear having their lives destroyed for supporting conservatism. They fear having their lives destroyed by it. Democrats, as bad as they can be, don't have much to fear in terms of a mass exodus of Black folks across the aisle, because Republicans have shown time and time again that that's not what they actually want. What we must remember with Lindsey Graham is, yes, he is shameless. Many politicians are. But one thing that I want you to take into account and consider anytime you're honing in on South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham is this. He views it as theater. When he goes in front of the press, it is to a degree theater. But to him, as he put it previously in this piece, it is to stay relevant. That is why he says these outrageous, outlandish, not factual, easily debunked talking points. He does it to stay relevant. He does it to publicly stay in the good graces of those that he needs to be in the good graces of. That is what he does. Shameless is just a characteristic of the job, but also of him, of course. So thus I give you this direct quote, and it is from a former law partner of Lindsey Graham who spoke to Rolling Stone. One day before Trump was elected, Graham visited Brandt at his office. We were talking about politics, and he looked at me and said, "Larry, you're too honest to be in politics," Brandt recalls. He said 85% of the people in Washington, elected officials and bureaucrats, would sell their mothers to keep their jobs. That's a direct quote. Then later on, Brandt ran into Graham at a restaurant and reminded him of what he'd said. He, of course, made a joke about it, Brandt says, but Lindsey, in my opinion, has sold his mother to keep his job.